Hi, I'm Jim Riley, and welcome to Mid-Hudson Cable Vision's Salute to Vets. Today, we have Kyle Snyder visiting with us. Kyle, how are you?
Good. How are you, sir?
Good. Sir, we've been talking for about an hour and a half since we went on the air, so you don't have to call me sir anymore. But thanks for spending time with us today. We appreciate it. Now, we know we're going to talk about veteran stuff and your experience in the military and in the war footing, but let's get to know you a little bit first. You're from Hudson originally?
Originally from Hudson, graduated in Hudson in 1987.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then you decided to go out into the larger world and you chose the military to get started. And what was that choice?
I did. 2 weeks after graduating, I went to the Navy, served in the Navy for 10 years through Desert Storm, and got out after Desert Storm and tried to give civilian life a chance, and found that I wasn't quite as successful in civilian life, so decided to go back to the military.
You found out something that worked for you, and
That's
you kind
right.
of gravitated back towards that. Now, in the Navy, your job was what?
Radioman, and which is basically communications.
Right, and you were on a ship.
Yeah, I was on a couple different ships, and I was also stationed in Groton, Connecticut at the sub base over there.
Okay, all right, the big submarine base in Groton,
Right.
Connecticut. Okay, so you decided you were going to go back in. When was that?
I went back into, I moved down south and went back in the Army National Guard in 1999. I did a year with the Virginia Guard, got married, and we were expecting a child, so I decided that I wanted to get out and spend time at home and be there for, the birth of my child and everything else. So I did 1 year down there.
Yeah.
And went back and worked as civilian jobs and everything else. And then soon after I got out, 9/11 happened.
Yeah.
And, it's, I guess, instilled in all vets that you want to do something for
serve,
your country.
You want to be there, yeah.
Right. And I went back in actually a few years later, went back in 2008. And went with a military police unit out of Winterville, North Carolina.
Okay, now you and I were talking when we went out earlier, these career fields, particularly military police, get you right into the heart of the action. So
Right.
when you went into the war footing, where did you go?
I was in Coast Province, Afghanistan.
Okay.
And got over there in June or August, and was only there 7 weeks. So it was, had to adjust to the world as it was over there.
Right.
And that was a big adjustment for us.
Well, I was going to say, and I don't want to get too heavily into that, because if you're not there, if you've never been in a war footing, I don't think there's any way for us to really understand that and share it with folks. But let's talk about some of the feelings, because Steve had some interesting questions. Steve Mortafolio is our producer on this project. So let me get one of his questions, because I thought it was a good one. What about the close friendships you made while you were over there? That is important, isn't it?
It is important because you're working together side by side 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's not like you can take a couple days vacation to get away from everything. You see each other, you train together, you run your missions together. Your close friends do become your family.
Right.
And so it's even that much more important that you maintain that friendship over there and keep the camaraderie, and you keep the working relationship. Nice.
Terribly important.
It is important, because those are your friends, those are your family.
Yeah, it's very important. Now, on the other side, because Steve had another interesting question there, I thought, and that is, what was like that gap between you and the family, and how did you keep communicating and keep that link together?
Well, it was difficult because where we were, the internet wasn't the best. So you had Skype. You didn't have any text messaging.
Right.
So if the internet was good, that decided to behave that day, you had good Skype connection.
Right.
With an 8.5 hour time difference, though, it was kind of hard to keep up with family.
How do you get everybody on the same time where you can really communicate?
Basically, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I would get up and Skype, or if there was something going on, because at that time over there, you had your best signal. Not everybody's on it. It's they're asleep.
Right.
So you were able to communicate a little bit better.
Right, and that's the way to keep connected at home.
Right.
Very stressful on the family as well, I would think.
Absolutely. I mean, when a soldier deploys, the family deploys.
Yeah.
The spouse at home now picks up the slack for the spouse that is left, and getting kids where they need to be, and running the household, and
right.
So it is stressful.
Well, and the other is that little cloud over the head with the worry as well.
And never knowing what you're doing. That's
right. Yeah, that's got to be tough on both ends. How does somebody do that? It must have been very, very difficult.
You have
for
to be strong-willed. I mean, you know, there's only so much that I could tell my wife when I was over there.
Right.
She didn't know exactly where I was, but you know, there's only so much you can tell them, and then that we know what we're doing every day, but they don't. So
Right.
it's a lot harder on them. So for out running missions, you know, there is no communication. The only thing she knows is that I'm working.
Right.
And it's difficult. You have to, reassurance is a big thing because, you know, they ask questions and there's only so much you can tell them. And,
Right.
you know, so it was tough.
Well, I imagine the other part is you don't want to tell them too much.
Yeah,
either.
you don't because, you know, even everything over there is tapped. And when you're on the internet, you're on their internet. So
Right.
it's easily,
Yeah.
I'm sure, to get into.
Yeah, and the thing that, from somebody who hasn't had that experience, it's in some ways you have to protect them as well because
yeah.
the worries, raising their stress level at home isn't going to help them very much either.
Right.
Yeah. Now we did say that you had a bad experience and you had a challenge physically, and that's kind of where you are today. So give us the history of that event and things that have happened since then.
October 1st, we had a mission with the AUPs, who's the Afghan Uniformed Police, and they wanted to do a joint patrol, and so we did a joint patrol, and we were dismounted, which means I had 8 guys out of trucks, and we were patrolling through the city, and there were 16 AUP officers, and we patrolled down into the market area, which in Coast is one of the smallest provinces, but it has the most population of over 130,000 people.
Right. Right.
So if you can imagine 130,000 people down at the boat launch,
Yeah.
basically,
Yeah,
at the market.
crammed in there. Yeah.
So we patrolled through the city, and we were there just to provide security for the AUPs. And we set up our perimeters and everything, and the AUP commander was getting ready to do a search. And one of my soldiers came over and talked to me, and I had noticed there was a guy down there that just looked like he didn't fit. So I questioned
Right.
the situation, and they told me that he was also part of the AUP, Afghan Uniformed Police, but he didn't have a weapon on, and his dress just didn't click. So I was keeping an eye on him, and in the city, the streets over there have monuments in them, in the roads, and I looked at my watch, and it was 8:30 in the morning, and I lost track of him for just a second. He came around, and apparently there was a confrontation, and he was a suicide bomber.
Right.
And the next thing I know, it's this loud explosion, and you know, from there it was just chaos.
Yeah.
Absolute chaos. Both my legs were blown out, broken. My left leg, femur, the fib, the tib, patella, my kneecap, everything is just, at one point they thought they would have to take my leg.
Right.
And I fell on top of one of my soldiers at that time, who I didn't know had already passed. And I remember closing my eyes, and my father passed away a few years ago, and he kept telling me, keep talking.
Right.
Keep talking. You know, I could see him in his vision. He said, keep talking. So I did, and I could hear the screams, you know, the women and everything else. And so I was able to start moving, trying to crawl back to my truck. And that's when they grabbed me and started performing, trying to get my leg to, you know, to stop bleeding as
Right.
bad as it was.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, I lost 3 soldiers.
Yeah, tragic stuff. And that's, I think, for people like us at home who don't have those experiences, that's an awfully big challenge for the rest of your life to deal with those losses. How do you cope?
It's hard because each of them had their own significant story in a way. One of them had just been there 9 days and had a 4-month-old baby. So he left behind his wife and his
Yeah.
baby, and the other 2 had just gotten married before we left. So they really hadn't even started their lives with their
Yeah.
spouses. And it's tough because I was close to all 3 of them.
Yeah.
And you know, as a leader, you wonder what you could have done differently. But in this case, there really wasn't anything.
No.
But I do keep in contact with one of the families, the soldier that had the baby.
Yeah.
And I go down and see his wife, and then the other 2 are every once in a while.
Yeah.
But it's, everybody grieves differently.
Yes.
So for us, keeping in contact with her has helped her, and it's also helped me. And just a few weeks ago, my unit returned from Afghanistan, and I think that was one of the biggest reliefs that I had, was seeing them get off the plane and knowing that they're okay. I don't have to worry about it anymore,
Right.
Because those were still my people.
With your sense of responsibility in that environment, just because you're out of there doesn't mean that your worries don't still stay there. Hold on just a second, because we're going to take a break and come back, because I want to follow up on the process of the recovery that you've experienced since then. We're going to be back with Kyle Snyder. I was thrilled I remembered your name, because they put us in the seat. We've been running pretty helter-skelter here. We'll be back in just a few seconds after a few messages. We want to continue with Kyle's story.
Looking to spice up your table? Mid-Hudson Cable invites you to travel with us and meet the chef. Join host Jim Riley as he gives you an intimate look at some of the area's best eateries, from the burger joint down the street to a 4-star restaurant. Meet the people behind the scenes who prepare some of the best dishes in the area. Thursday and Sunday at 8 p.m., Saturday at 11 and 8 p.m., with a new episode each month, only on Channel 11. Meet the Chef, available exclusively on Mid-Hudson Cable.
Welcome back again. Mid-Hudson Cable Vision, salute to the veterans. That's this program. And Kyle Snyder, again, thanks so much for taking time with us today. And I asked, we were speaking while we were off camera, and you told us some of the details of what took place. I think we're going to leave that out, because I think it's a little too tough for the folks at home. So if we could pick it up from, it was a bombing.
Yes.
Your knees were severely, not knees, your legs were severely damaged.
Right.
And then you were picked up in a helicopter, and then take us on from there.
They took us off the battlefield site, took us up, and luckily for us, our cop is what they called it, was right at the top of the hill, so we were very close. Got me up to the landing zone, and at that time, just a few minutes later, the helicopters came in, took me off to Salerno, which we got in there and casual treatment center. They assessed the injuries, and basically that was just sort of like a quick stop for trying to stop things and slow them down. And then they moved me over to Bagram, the hospital in Bagram, and I was there just for a day.
And there's a big air base there.
Bagram Airfield.
Yeah. And again, this is the work they did there was triage, kind of getting you ready to find out what they had to do.
Right.
Okay.
Well, it was just a lot of Band-Aids and things like that, and trying to keep everything stable till they could get me to Germany.
Right.
Where then they would assess the injuries and do the surgeries that they needed to do.
And the concern was losing one or both of your legs?
The concern was losing the left leg. The left leg was more severe. I still have a lot of pieces of shrapnel in my leg.
Right.
The right leg was broken also. I had a couple minor surgeries on that to get it repaired, but the concern was definitely the left leg. Right.
So then you're in Germany and you did that. Now there's an ongoing process of recovery. You're still in the military.
Correct.
You're still active. Now, how many years now do we have total going
15.
on? Because we want to get to 20.
Right.
It looks like we're going to get there?
I'm hoping we're going to get there.
Okay, good. So when you get back to the States, they eventually got you to Walter Reed, which is where you're at now.
Right.
Okay. So where are we at now in the process?
I just had surgery to repair my Achilles, because during the time that my leg was immobile, my foot dropped. So I couldn't get my foot back to where I needed to walk.
Right.
And so once I started therapy on my leg and was able to start moving them, then we had to correct the foot issue so that I could, was able to use that. So I just had that done 4 weeks ago, and then I probably have at least one more surgery left for my leg, and that'll be my 10th surgery throughout this process.
Now, how do you keep your spirits up in that? Because we were talking off camera, people have different health issues and surgeries and things. Fortunately for most people, they have one, if they're lucky, and they're done. You're going through multiples. How do you deal with that?
I just, I have a great support system, and my wife has been there I came back into the States. We got hit on October 1st. October 5th, I flew back in.
Right.
And my wife was there waiting on me, and she's been by my side every day since then. And she has actually, she's had to quit her job and take care. You know, she was my nurse at home.
Right.
And she's my nurse up at Walter Reed. And, you know, I just support and you know, the drive. And then where I am, I look at some of the guys that are there and women that are there, and you know, I'm fortunate because they don't have their limbs,
Right.
you know, and
Yeah.
so they're an inspiration to me.
Right.
And so, you know, you keep positive. You just know that things will get better, and they have gotten better. Yeah, back in October, November, I was, you know, I wasn't feeling this way
No.
because I just, you
You
know.
just didn't know how bad it was going to be.
Right. And at that point, you're still not out of the woods, and you're not really out of the woods until, you know, you're up walking and you're
Right.
not having any setbacks.
Well, one of the things that was interesting you mentioned about having trouble with the Achilles heel in your foot is that when you're inactive due to a situation like this,
Right.
other issues come up and other complications. So you've wrestled with that as well.
Right, and that was one of them, is because, you know, I couldn't move my legs for almost 16 weeks.
Yeah.
And so at that time, you know, the foot dropped and everything tightened up. And then
Right.
with the shrapnel I have in my leg, it has bound a lot of muscle and tissue. So, you know, and that's another thing that I battle today is, you know, some days it's better than others, but, you know, you got to keep fighting. You got to keep going forward.
You're going to feel that all the time. Speaking of your wife, who's made heroic efforts on your behalf, and of course that's what a great wife does, how does she keep her spirits up?
We keep each other going.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
You know, there's been times that I just wanted to give up, and you know, we were talking last night. You know, I remember when I got home, I didn't want to get out of the bed.
Yeah.
You know, I just felt like, just leave me alone. And she, you know, she pushed me, and as mad as I got, she got me up out of bed and
Right.
you know, got me out to the couch and got me using the walker and things like that, because I had to. You
Yeah.
know, without her, I wouldn't have done this.
No.
So, but it's been tough for her. But you know, she's strong. She's,
Yeah.
you know, and she's been through it now, and she knows what being a military spouse is all about now,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
I think the other part is, and it's kind of there's always like some kind of silver lining with the cloud, is when she sees you improve. It must
yeah.
be very rewarding for
It
her.
is rewarding for her, because that's also a testament of what she's done for me.
Yeah.
You know, we've been through this together. I haven't gone through this on my own.
Yeah.
You know, she's been through it with me, and our kids have been through it. You know, we have to take time away from the kids because I have to, you know, get my treatment, and it's not easy. And when you live, you know, 5 hours away from your kids, you want to be home all the time
Yeah.
with them.
Yeah.
But we know that I have to get better, and Walter Reed has given me that chance to go up there, and they've got a great team of doctors that I've got, and clinical physicians and everything else. And there's no better place in the country right now. And so we understand that that's where I need to be to get better, so that I can get home and we can pick up our everyday
Basically,
lives.
this is what your job is right now,
Yes.
to get better.
Yes.
Now, having said that, I think one of the things that it just came to mind as you're talking about your wife motivating you, getting you out of bed, depression's a very real thing, huh?
Yeah, it is, because, you know, when I first came home, I literally cried myself to sleep every
Yeah.
night. You know, I lost
Yeah.
3 soldiers, I lost 3 friends.
Yeah.
You know, 3 spouses lost their spouse. You
Yeah.
know, a child lost his father, and so on and so forth. And those were close friends of mine.
Right.
So yeah, depression does set in. And when my unit came home, you know, I just felt like, you know, they came home that day too.
Yes.
And so in spirit, you know, everybody's home, and I think it's helped a lot of people. And, you know, you get rewards and you get Purple Hearts and things like that, but I'm one of those that looks at the Purple Heart in the other way. You know, I wish I didn't have it, because
Right.
that means I wasn't in a conflict or lives weren't lost.
Yeah.
And so you think about those things, and being a little bit older than most of the people in my unit, that's one of the ways
Yeah.
that I am. I mean, I'm just, you know, I would rather have come home and spent 10 months overseas and struggled with missing my family than
Right,
to come
and
home the
having
way
had
I
the
did.
experience and have those losses.
Correct.
I have to tell you that most people are fortunate, and I explained to you earlier my military experience where I fit in between conflicts, and I didn't have to face that situation. I think that we really find out who we are through this kind of experience, and you got to feel awfully good about yourself and where you are today.
Yeah, you do find out, because your inner strength is never never comes to the surface until it really has to. You know, when I left the hospital in North Carolina and they told me I could go home for the first time, I jumped at the chance, but you know, I couldn't walk in a walker.
Yeah.
And you know, and that was the only thing that I could use. There was no way I could use crutches, and you know, so I left in a wheelchair and got home, and I decided, you know, I've got to teach myself. And so you teach yourself how to do things, and everything that I've done, like I said, has been because my wife has pushed me, and it's because my drive is, you know, to get better. This is what you have to do, and home is the best place to heal. I truly believe that. But
I do have to agree with that. I think almost anybody who's had a negative experience like this knows that the minute you get out of that confined environment where you're sick or injured and you get home, you start feeling more positive and more capable
Right.
of going through the recovery. So first of all, thank you so much for sharing with us your personal experience. But let's broaden it out and go from your experience to something you're terribly committed to and interested in. That's a Wounded Warrior Project. Give us an overview of that, if you would.
when I got up to Walter Reed, I wasn't ready for what I was getting, you know, what I saw. You have people that are raising families that don't have any legs, or maybe are missing both arms or one arm. And the Wounded Warrior Project does so many things for families like that, and for the wounded warriors, such as myself, you know, and to make life easier, and to make adapting back to life easier. You know, send them on trips, and being able to do what they call competitive rehabilitation sports, and teaching somebody who has no legs to ski again, something that maybe they loved, and that's what the Wounded Warrior Project does. But you know, without them, a lot of you know, a lot of the things that we're afforded to, we wouldn't have. So it's tough. I've had some friends that came down from here, and you know, I think it opened their eyes to see exactly what we go through every day. And I consider myself lucky because I'm able to walk down the hall or go to my appointments. But at Walter Reed, there are a couple guys that have had, you know, their wives have had children while they're there. They've been there 3 or 4 years, and they may be there 3 or 4 more years. And with the Wounded Warrior Project, the Hero Miles, it allows families to fly for free back and forth so that they can visit or be with their loved one, you know, their soldiers, to get through the care. And so my biggest thing is when I'm all said and done and I'm healed and everything else, at the Wounded Warrior Project, is somehow I feel like I have to start working with them to give back, because they've given so much for me. Yeah,
I think that's important. We look behind us and see the flag and the things we believe in and the commitment that you people have made. I think when you look at our responsibility as a nation and as a people, is that we have to support projects like the Wounded Warrior Project. I know that Mid-Hudson Cable, through some of its employees, has worked at Ski Wyndham with a disabled skier project, and a lot of warriors have come in and experienced that. The joy on their faces is just remarkable, because they can participate again. Somebody cared enough to help them construct an environment which they can be successful and participate fully in life. So I can see why you're committed to that.
Yeah, it's giving them another chance. It's giving them hope. You know, we've got a lot of strong-willed people down there, and that's what they need. They need somebody to say, hey, you know, you can do it. Because you can sit in your room all day and just, you know, think about everything bad, but there's a lot of things good out there, and you got to get out and you got to do them. And the Wounded Warrior Project allows us the opportunity, and they take them to ball games, and we do, you know, we visit Capitol Hill, we go to the White House, we, you know, the skiing, adaptive skiing programs, hunting, fishing, you know, and it's all about them. And it's their day, and I've been a part of a couple of them, and you know, I had a great time, and so that's what it does. It gets your spirits going, and it gives you, you know, positive gain, and to know that you can do this.
Well, when we get off the air, I'm going to find out where you got that shirt so I can get one. I never like to do this unless I get something out of it. You know what I'm saying, Kyle?
Well, they actually at the hospital, they'll come around and once a week they'll set up and give you shirts and shorts and hats, and you know, they're always giving something.
Isn't
you know,
that
to
wonderful?
the warriors.
It is great. Yeah. Now, Steve had one note here. I got to look. We're going to give him credit again. Steve Mortifolio put this project together. And I think it's really kind of a good way to wrap this up today. What about something we haven't asked you? Is there anything you want to share with the folks out there?
It's, you know, I think everybody's story is unique and is different. It was a pleasure for me to be in the parade on Saturday.
That's right. Flag Day parade.
Flag
I'd
Day
forgotten about
parade,
that, yes.
and to come home back to Hudson, you know, and see friends and be with friends and family and be able to represent Hudson, and you know, and I hope what people saw is that there, you know, there's hope for people that are injured or things like that. I know a lot of people followed my thing on Facebook
Right.
and what I've gone through for the last 8 months, but you know, let's not take for granted what we have,
Right.
because it could all be gone very quickly. And my family is near and dear to my heart, and that's one of the things, you know, that's what I thought about, is losing my family, you
Yeah.
know. And I promised my wife when I went over, I said, I'll be back, you know, and she was concerned, and I said, but I'll be back. I came back, but I didn't come back the way I wanted to come back. And,
Right.
you know, so you don't take anything for granted and appreciate what you've got. And, you know, one thing, I talk to a lot of kids at schools
Terribly
down there.
important, yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, one thing I always tell them is it starts at home, respecting your parents and, you know, your teachers, listen to them, but have a career path, you know, have something long-term down the road that you want to do, that, you know, when you're out of high school, make a positive influence on your community,
Yeah.
you know, because nobody can not do it. They can do whatever they want.
Right.
You just got to put your mind to it. And so, you know, I've got 5 kids. My wife and I have 5 kids total, and it's all of them are you know, have lived through this with me. So it's been a learning experience for some, but for me it's been more of a teaching experience, and so it's easy for me to talk about it to people, and I think that's helped me, you know, get through
Cope,
my
yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, I have to tell you how much I enjoyed meeting you and having this experience with you. I also want to say on behalf of all the folks out there how much we appreciate your service, commitment, and what you've
Absolutely.
given to this country. We greatly admire you and your fellows.
thank you.
Thank you. And we look forward to seeing you again on Salute to the Veterans, very special program developed by Mid-Hudson Cablevision, and we're pleased to bring it to you. Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah, Keith.
Welcome to Smart Home from Mid-Hudson Cable, a monitoring solution that brings the power of video to protect your family and home. Using cameras installed by Mid-Hudson Cable technicians, you can check in on your pets, be notified when your children get home, or look in on the nanny. For businesses, a visible camera can reduce crime and help employees and customers feel safer at night. Call today to learn how Smart Home can help you.